want to touch on this because Micah Parsons, as I mentioned, was on a terrific episode today of the Pivot Podcast. I encourage you, if you have a chance to listen to it in podcast form or watch it on YouTube, to take the 40 minutes out to do so, because it's a very enlightening interview with the Lion himself, talking about not only life on and off the football field, but life after football as well, and what his motivations are in terms of purpose and passion. Very, very, very good 40 minutes of talking with Ryan Clark, Shannon Crowder, and, of course, Fred Taylor of the Pivot Podcast. I want to go to cut number 14 because we talk about the motivation for this team having lost the last 2 years to the San Francisco 49ers and how much it hurt for this Cowboys team to do so. Micah Parsons channeling that hurt and talking about the playoff loss. Listen to this exchange with him and Ryan Clark as Micah Parsons details how he felt after that loss last year.
You're headed into San Francisco, a team that took you out the year before at the start at AT&T. And so now you got this opportunity, and the defense plays well. You're not able to score enough points. Defense doesn't make the plays in the red zone that keeps them out, and you lose. What was your feeling walking off of the field last year?
Man, to be honest with you, it ain't really hit me till we hit the locker room. The thing that people don't realize, like, that team will never be the same again. Like, them same guys, same coaches, it'll never be the same again. And, like, I was so devastated realizing, like, I ain't never talked or hugged some of them people that, you know, I left that locker room with ever again. Like, once we broke out of meetings, I never talked to George Edwards again. I never got to say to him how much I appreciate you for molding me and helping me as a young player and staying on me. Like, I never got to say thank you to the people across the room who helped me and gave me advice. Like, and you know, that feeling right there crushes you, bro. Like, there's no feeling like feeling like you let people down. And that regret too. I think about all the plays I ain't missed. Like, every play, there's certain plays I think about that I'm like, man, I wish I'd have just did this. Like, I know that was my job, that was my duty. Like, and you know, you live with that for so long. If you're really a competitor, like, everyone's not built like that. But me, like, that stuff weighs on me, bro. It's like a little heart attack.
Like a little heart attack, says Micah Parsons at the end of that there. And you can tell for him, there is specific motivation, because even though this defense last year held San Francisco to 19 points and you felt like they were good enough to win that football game based on what the defense was able to do in holding that San Francisco offense down to just those 19 points, that he and that defense takes responsibility for not making enough plays in that game. But when you look at the totality of this football team, offensively, they were not good enough last year. Dak Prescott dealing with injuries in terms of that wide receiver core. We saw Tony Pollard go down in that game. CeeDee Lamb was really the only real playmaker to speak of in that playoff game last year. This team, after adding Brandon Cooks on the offensive side, having added Stephon Gilmore to go on the other side of Trayvon Diggs, this team is going to use, and specifically Micah Parsons, the bitter taste that was left in their mouths last year after walking out of Santa Clara, having lost to the 49ers for a second year in a row, to try and make good on what they believe is one of the most talented teams in all the NFL. And objectively, if you look at this team, this is one of the most talented teams in all the NFL. Even LaShawn McCoy even admitting to that today when he had a chance to go out to practice to watch the Cowboys. Him and Newy Scruggs having an interesting conversation that I'm sure you'll be able to see circulating on social media as well. But let's go to cut number 15, because we talked about how the Cowboys felt coming out of last year and why they feel like this is their time this year. Micah Parsons speaking on the Pivot Podcast. Is this the year, Micah, for these Cowboys to finally get it done?
Y'all can't say that y'all the best team in the NFC East. As much as you just talked about the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Philadelphia Eagles, the truth is the Philadelphia Eagles represented the NFC in the Super Bowl. The truth is Jalen Hurts got that experience up against Patrick Mahomes. That team, shoot, you was pissed off when Jalen Carter fell to the Philadelphia Eagles. So what says that the Dallas Cowboys, now more experienced, can just beat the Philadelphia Eagles? Why should anybody even pick y'all in your own division?
That's what football's for. That's what the pads is for. The pads talk. I can say all we want. That's what football's for. I could just show you better. I could tell you. That's what my mom told me when I was growing up. You're not wrong. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you another man is better than me. He got to see me twice a year, plus playoffs. So what that tell you?
I tell them we're going to see it happen on the grass.
Exactly. And then we're going to come back to it. I'm like, bro, I told you who the best. People go to the playoffs and go to Super Bowl and they don't make it for another 4 years. That don't, you know what I'm saying? Some people, egos. There's a lot of egos in football. That's one thing I realized, this year ain't no egos, bro. Like, I don't think I'm better than the next man, but I can outwork you.
And that mentality is that this entire defense is going to have to feed off of, because the Eagles, the 49ers, all these teams are going to have to come see Dallas when it comes to facing them on the football field. And if Micah Parsons is spearheading with that kind of mindset and attitude, you think with the talent that's on that defense, with the three-headed monster that they have in their safety group, with Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, and obviously Jaron Kearse on the defensive line, led by Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence going into another year as well. Can they shore up the middle with Mozzie Smith and Jonathan Hankins getting pressure up the middle and helping out and being better in the run game, which we know the Cowboys were poor at last year? And then more importantly, in the middle of this defense where we get to Leighton Vander Esch, who had a resurgent year last year, where Micah Parsons said, quote, he's the most important piece. That's one person I was super excited to have back. You talk about someone that knows and commands the defense inside out, making sure everyone is lined up. Attention to detail when he puts into the game can't be replicated. I mean, he got a chance to work with Sean Lee, and I can feel like Sean Lee rubbed off on him. Every bit of his game reminds me of it. How he runs to the ball, his aggressiveness, how he just asserts everyone, gets everyone lined up, his willingness to move around, with DeMarcus Lawrence going on to say he's a dynamic piece to the puzzle that coming from Todd Archer's latest piece in ESPN today on Leighton Vander Esch as the guy who, of course, wears the green dot on the helmet for this Cowboys defense. And if he can continue to play well like we saw last year, we've even seen so far in camp him getting a little bit of situational work on the edge and being able to get after the quarterback a little bit. We're talking about another chess piece for Dan Quinn and this defense to be able to get after opposing offenses this upcoming year. Because as much as we talk about the talent on this offense when it comes to Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Tony Pollard going into a contract year as he looks to continue to prove his worth after coming off a career year last year with career highs in touches, rushing yards, and touchdowns, it's the defense that's going to set the tone and the identity of this team this upcoming year. And we keep talking about the kind of play purpose that we're talking about on offense. That same purpose has to be felt on defense. And you feel like Dan Quinn now in year 3 with this defense has this group in all on the same page, and is led by their fearless, talented player in Micah Parsons, but Leighton Vander Esch being the key with his versatility, not only to be able to help out in the run game, to be able to make some plays from the linebacker position, but if now we're starting to see him get some situational work and getting after the quarterback, it just adds to the dimension of this defense, because they've got a lot of depth on that defensive line when it comes to Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong, as I mentioned, with DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Sam Williams, among others. This is a deep group and talented group on that defensive line. And yes, I see your point, 214, talking about the idea of Leighton Vander Esch having dealt with injury much like Sean Lee. But that's missing the point here. While, yes, football, a very physical and violent game, and Sean Lee dealt with his fair share of injuries, it's the consistency that Leighton Vander Esch was able to get back to last year that has to continue to move forward for him this upcoming year, that will really help stabilize that linebacking core, given some of the young guys that are there. When you're looking at a Damone Clark as well, who's going to be a contributor on that second line of defense there at the linebacking position. So if you can find that level of consistency in your linebacking group, obviously given the dynamicism that you see on the defensive line and in the back end of your secondary with Stephon Gilmore and Trayvon Diggs manning things down at your corner position, and I mentioned the three-headed monster with your safety group, this defense, as Ryan Clark and others have detailed, have a chance to be arguably the best defense in all of football this year. And that is because of the continuity with Dan Quinn coming back, the talented playmakers on all 3 levels, but the singular mindset that is led by Micah Parsons, as you've heard detailed so far, and the motivation that comes with having lost to San Francisco the last couple of years in the playoffs, and what it would mean for this group to not only advance deep into the playoffs, but finally get to a Super Bowl on the backs of a strategically talented defense this upcoming year. From the 469 hot take, Dallas averages less than 20 points a game on offense this year. That is a hot take, and I don't know if necessarily a good take either, 469. if nothing else, you've seen this offense over the last couple of years be a top 5 scoring offense. With Mike McCarthy coming in and calling the plays, Brian Schottenheimer, now the offensive coordinator here. Maybe we see some screen game. Let's get some guys on the move. Deuce Vaughn, get him out in open space a little bit. This offense should be still pretty dynamic this upcoming year. And for Dak Prescott, with the amount of playmakers that he has in Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, among others, this team should score points. The question is, will they score points when it matters most in playoff situations, which we've seen the last couple of years, except for obviously the Tampa Bay game where they sent Tom Brady into retirement? Can they do it when it matters most? And if they can, this defense looks like they are primed and ready to come with them this upcoming year. All of this will be sorted out, of course, throughout the course of the regular season. But Micah Parsons, I encourage you to either watch or listen to his 40-minute interview with the Pivot Podcast, a very enlightening interview that just gives you more of a window into why this player is head and shoulders above the rest on this defense, and arguably one of the best defensive players in all of football and one of the leaders on this Cowboys team this upcoming season and beyond.